What is your point of view about psychedelics and legislation? Should it be controlled always?
My personal view is that psychedelics and changing one's consciousness are a basic human right, and that there should not be prohibitions against adults using these drugs. They should be legally available. On the other hand, these drugs are very powerful, and they can affect people in both positive and negative ways. And so I think we do need international regulation, but of a different sort. If you look at the number of people that have been dying from what they think is MDMA, but is really something else that's much more dangerous. I mean, most ecstasy or Molly is not really MDMA. So I think there is a need for a certain kind of regulation, but I think it's our basic human right, our freedom of religion, to explore our consciousness. And the whole system of worldwide prohibition is a tragic, terrible mistake. It just drives things underground, creates income for criminal gangs, breeds violence, disrespect for the government, and is a terrible mistake. But, as I said, these drugs have both risks and benefits. And so we need to have purity controls. We need to have support systems for people that have difficult trips. And I believe the issue about young people and what the policies should be are much more complicated. But my first and fundamental view of this is that it should not be in the hands of the government, but it should be in the hands of families. And that right now, the way in Europe, families introduce their children to alcohol at a relatively young age, where in the United States, it's against the law until you're 21 to have a drink of alcohol. And I would say there's virtually no 21-year-olds that haven't broken the law and tried alcohol. And 23 states in the United States permit parents to give alcohol to their children. And I think we should do something similar with psychedelics. And if we look at the cultures that have successfully integrated psychedelics, the Native American church that has 500,000 members that use peyote, or the use of ayahuasca by a variety of churches from South America that are spreading throughout Europe and the United States, they don't have age limits. They will permit parents to introduce these drugs to their children, usually in small doses as they're growing. So I think that the way that these drugs should ideally be controlled would be that they would be permitted to adults after there's some sort of educational program that they have to go, like learning how to get your driver's license. You have to go through an education program. And I think if people misbehave under the influence of the drugs, they should lose the opportunity to buy them, at least in the above ground market. So that there's like a credit card or a license to buy these drugs. And if you misbehave, you lose your license. And for young people, it should be that it's against the law, except for parents can introduce it to their children if they want to.
Finally, let's imagine one arithmetic progression about the future of psychedelics and also of cannabis. Is MAP somehow preparing for a future of legalized brain stimulants?
Well, right now we're in 2015. In presidential election years, 2016 and 2020, more young people, more minorities, more people come to vote who are likely to vote for the legalization of marijuana. So there's going to be about 5 more states where marijuana legalization is on the ballot in 2016. Massachusetts, California, Vermont, Maine, Arizona. And I think that there's a very good chance that marijuana legalization will win in all of those states. Then I think there will be more states that will legalize marijuana by the legislature without these votes. And I think there'll be even more states in 2020. So I think by 2024, which is less than 10 years from now, we're going to probably see marijuana legalization throughout the entire United States. And I think that will influence countries all over the world to do the same. I think psychedelics are going to be 10 to 20 years behind. And the reason, I think, is that we first see with marijuana that what has changed people's attitudes has been medical marijuana. So the states in the United States where medical marijuana began was California and Arizona in 1996. So we're almost 20 years into the really very popular and widespread discussions about medical use of marijuana, and that has helped counteract the propaganda about marijuana destroying people's lives and brains and leading to heroin addiction. So medical marijuana has still not yet become federally legal in the United States, and I think that probably won't happen for another 5 or 10 years as well. So I think with psychedelics, we're going to see medicalization in the next 6 years or so, and then there'll be another 10, 15 years while people change their attitudes towards the legalization of psychedelics, and watch how the legalization of marijuana works out. So I think 20 years from now, what we're going to see is thousands of psychedelic clinics all over the world where people can go for psychedelic psychotherapy. And also, maybe 20 years from now, 25 years from now, we'll see where people can go legally for personal growth, for spiritual experiences, and then also be able to purchase these drugs and use them on their own. So I think that over the next 20 years or so, we're going to see a reevaluation and a change and an abandonment of the whole system of prohibition that's been such a terrible disaster. And we'll move towards a public health approach and recognize people's fundamental human rights to explore their own consciousness.
Thanks, Rick. See you at the Boom.
Well, I'm not sure if I'm coming to Boom in 2016. I hope so. Boom is one of my favorite experiences. It's just so inspiring. In fact, I shouldn't, this is a little bit of a digression, but in 2012, one of the most depressing experiences I had was having a fantastic time at Boom and then going to Burning Man, where the police were all over the place, where it was the opposite of support for psychedelic harm reduction. And that's changing now. Boom has influenced Burning Man and influenced people in the United States. So we're anticipating a much better situation at Burning Man this year in terms of harm reduction. But if I do come to Boom in 2016, which I hope to, I would be working at the psychedelic harm reduction facility, which has been called Cosmic Care, and just trying to lend a hand. And if I'm not there, I'm sure we're going to have some people from MAPS coming there to volunteer and help out.